Commander Nari Kim sat in her small office on Earth's military base. She was reading reports when her computer made a loud beeping sound. A message appeared on her screen. The words made her eyes go wide. Report to Galactic Defense Council headquarters. Immediately, Priority 1. Nari had never gotten a message like this before. She was just a training officer on Earth. She taught young soldiers how to fight and survive. Why would the big Space Council want her? 2 hours later, Nari was on a fast ship heading to Kepler 7 station. The station was huge. It floated in space like a metal city. Ships from dozens of different worlds flew around it like busy insects. When Nari stepped off her ship, she felt small. The station was built for many different alien races. Some hallways were very tall for the big aliens. Others were very small for the tiny ones. Everything smelled different too. It was a mix of strange air and alien scents. A tall, blue-skinned alien waited for her. He had 4 arms and golden eyes. His skin looked like smooth metal. "Commander Kim," the alien said. His voice was deep and serious. "I am Admiral HFY of the Xanthari fleet. Thank you for coming so quickly." Nari nodded. "Sir, I don't understand why I'm here. I'm just a training officer. Walk with me," HFY said. They moved through the busy station. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked. Past them, some had wings. Others had many legs. Some looked like walking crystals. They entered a large room with a huge screen on the wall. The screen showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked places across the map. There were too many red dots. "Each red dot is a destroyed colony," HFY explained. "In the past 6 months, we have lost 47 worlds to a new enemy. They call themselves the Vraktai." Nari looked at the screen. So many dead worlds, so many lost lives. What makes them so dangerous? HFY pressed a button. The screen changed. It now showed battle recordings. Nari watched as alien armies fought against dark, insect-like creatures. The Vraktai were fast and smart. They seemed to know exactly what the defending armies would. "Do watch carefully," HFY said. The recording showed Xanthari warriors charging with energy weapons. The Vraktai were ready for them. They had shields in the exact right places. The Xanthari attack failed completely. The next recording showed a different battle. Catherian insect soldiers used their hive mind tactics. They moved as one perfect unit. But again, the Vraktai were ready. They split the hive mind somehow. The Catherians became confused and lost. "Every species fights the same way their genetics tell them to," HFY explained. "The Xanthari always charge with honor. The Catherians always use hive mind tactics. The Resonari always use sound attacks. We are predictable." Nari was starting to understand. "And the Vraktai learn your patterns." "Exactly. They study how we fight. Then they prepare perfect counters. We cannot surprise them because we always fight the same way." HFY turned to face her. His golden eyes looked tired. "But then we studied humans. Your species fought a global war for 6 years. You used weapons that other races would call primitive. Yet you won against enemies with better technology and more soldiers." How? Nari thought about Earth's history. World War II, her grandfather had told her stories. We adapted. When one thing didn't work, we tried something else. We never fought the same battle twice. "Yes," HFY's voice got excited. "This is why we need you. We need to learn this human way of fighting. We need to become unpredictable." They walked to another room. 5 aliens stood waiting. Each one was from a different species. Nari could see they were all soldiers. "This is your training unit," HFY said. "They are best warriors, but they have all failed against the Vraktai." The first alien was tall and blue like HFY. He had 4 arms and carried energy weapons. "This is Veltar. He is Xanthari, very strong and brave." The second alien looked like a big insect. It had 6 legs and moved very smoothly. Zixclick Catherian warrior drone. Very smart when connected to the hive. The third alien was strange. It looked like walking crystal that changed colors. Eco Prime, Resonari sound warrior. It can make deadly music. The fourth alien was the strangest of all. It looked like moving energy held in the shape of a person. Fluxara, energy being from the Veil sector. Very hard to kill. The fifth person was human. A young man with black hair and nervous eyes. And this is Woojin Park. He will be your assistant. Nari looked at the group. Each alien was impressive. In their own way, but she could already see the problem. They all stood in their own space. They didn't look at each other. Each species thought their way was the best way. Admiral, Nari said, what exactly do you want me to teach them? How to fight like humans, Dexfer replied. How to be unpredictable. How to survive when honor and genetic programming say you should die, Nari nodded slowly. This would not be easy. When do we start? Now, Dexfer said. The Vraktai are moving toward the core worlds. We have maybe 3 months before they reach the most important planets. If we cannot stop them, the galaxy will fall. Nari looked at her new students again. Veltar stood proud and straight. His people valued honor above life. Zixklik kept trying to connect to a hive mind that wasn't there. Ecoprime hummed softly, making beautiful but useless music. Fluxara just floated there like it didn't care about anything. All right, Nari said. Let's start with something simple. Combat simulation. Basic enemy encounter. They moved to a training room. The walls could make holographic enemies appear. Nari set up a simple scenario. 5 Raktai. Soldiers in an open area. Standard attack pattern, she told them. Show me how your species normally fights. What happened next was exactly what she expected. Veltar charged straight at the enemy, roaring a battle cry. Zixklik tried to coordinate with the others, but they didn't understand hive tactics. Ecoprime sang a war song that was beautiful but told the enemies exactly where it was. Fluxara attacked alone, not working with anyone else. The holographic Vraktai destroyed them in 30 seconds. Again, Nari said, they tried again, same result. The aliens fought exactly like their genetics told them to. They could not change. They could not adapt. After the 5th failed attempt, Veltar threw down his weapons. This is impossible. How can we fight enemies who know our every move? Nari smiled for the first time since arriving at the station. That's exactly the right question. And that's where we start learning to fight like humans. She looked at each of them. Rule number 1 of human combat. If the enemy expects it, don't do it. Rule number 2, survival is more important than honor. Rule number 3, there are no other rules. The aliens stared at her like she had said something crazy, which from their point of view this was going to be a very long 3 months. The next morning, Nari stood in front of her alien students. They looked tired and confused. Yesterday's training had not gone well. Before we fight, we need to understand something, Nari said. Why do you fight? Veltar stood up straight. For honor. For the glory of my people? Wrong, Nari said simply. The Zenthari warrior's face turned dark blue with anger. You insult my people. No, Nari replied. I'm trying to save your life. Zixklik, why do you fight? The insect alien's head tilted. To serve the hive. To protect. The colony, also wrong, Echo Prime? The crystal being's colors shifted to confused purple, to create perfect harmony through combat music. Wrong again, Flexara? The energy being flickered. To consume enemy energy and grow stronger, Nari looked at Wujin. What about you? The young human thought carefully. To go home alive? Better, Nari said, but still not quite right. Humans don't fight to go home. We fight to make sure the people we care about can go home. That changes everything. She walked to the center of the room. All of you fight for ideas, honor, duty, power. Humans fight for people. When you fight for ideas, you follow rules. When you fight for people, you do whatever works. Veltar crossed his forearms. This sounds like coward talk. Really? Nari asked. Let me tell you about my grandfather. He was in a human war 70 years ago. His unit was trapped by enemies with better weapons and more soldiers. The honorable thing was to fight and die bravely. She paused. Instead, he waited until night. Then he crawled through mud for 6 hours. He snuck into the enemy camp. He poisoned their water supply. 20 enemy soldiers got sick. My grandfather's unit escaped while the enemies were too sick to fight. That is not honorable combat, Veltar said. You're right, Nari agreed. It's not honorable, but my grandfather lived. His friends lived. He came home to his family. 50 years later, I was born because he chose life over honor. She looked at each of them. The Vraktai are beating you because they know exactly how you'll fight. Zenthari always charge. Kithirians always use hive tactics. Rezanari always sing war songs. You're predictable. Nari pressed a button. The training room changed. Now it looked like a rocky canyon with many hiding places. New exercise, she said. I want you to get from this end of the canyon to the other end. Wujin and I will try to stop you. But here's the difference. No species-specific abilities. No charging, no hive mind, no war songs, no energy attacks. The aliens looked confused. Then how do we fight? Zixklik asked. Figure it out, Nari said, like humans do. The exercise was a disaster. The aliens stood in the open, not knowing what to do. Without their natural abilities, they were helpless. Nari and Wujin easily picked them off with training weapons. Again, Nari said, that same result. The aliens couldn't think beyond their programming. On the third try, something different happened. Ecoprime started to move differently. Instead of walking upright and humming, it crawled low and stayed quiet. The crystal being made it halfway across before Nari spotted it. Good. Nari called out, Ecoprime is learning. What did you do differently? I stopped making music, Ecoprime said. Its color shifted to surprised yellow. It felt wrong, but it worked better. Exactly. You broke your programming. You did something that felt wrong, but worked right. Over the next week, Nari taught them basic human survival skills. She brought in Tycho, another human instructor, to help. First lesson, Tyke said, holding up a broken piece of metal. Everything is a weapon. He showed them how to sharpen it, how to balance it, how to throw it. Veltar picked up a small rock. This is not a weapon. This is just a rock. Wrong, Tyke said. He threw his rock at a target 20 feet away. It hit perfectly. In human hands. Everything is a weapon. Rocks, sticks, broken glass, even dirt. The aliens were shocked. Their species only used proper weapons made for war. Second lesson, Nari continued. Use the environment. She showed them how to hide behind rocks, how to use shadows, how to make the enemy come to them. This is sneaky fighting, Veltar complained. This is smart fighting, Nari corrected. Would you rather be sneaky and alive or honorable and dead? Slowly, very slowly, the aliens began to learn. Zixklik learned to think for itself instead of waiting for hive commands. Flexara learned to work with others instead of fighting alone. Ecoprime learned to be quiet when needed. The breakthrough came during a mock battle. Neri set up a scenario where the aliens had to rescue hostages from a heavily defended position. 2 human soldiers, Minji Choi and Hyuk Nam, played the enemy. The aliens' first attempt followed standard tactics. They failed badly. Think differently, Nari urged them. What would the enemy not expect? Veltar suddenly had an idea. What if we don't attack the main defenses? Go on, Nari encouraged. What if we make them think we're attacking from the front, but really attack from behind? That's called a diversion, Wujin explained. Very human tactic. They tried again. Zixklik and Fluxara made noise and fake attacks from the front. Meanwhile, Veltar and Ecoprime snuck around the back. It worked. They rescued the hostages. For the first time, the aliens looked excited instead of confused. I understand now, Ecoprime said, its colors bright with happiness. We don't fight the same battle twice. But how do we know what to do differently? Each time? Zixklik asked. Nari smiled. That's what we'll learn next. How to think like humans in combat. How to adapt when everything goes wrong. That night, Veltar approached Nari privately. Commander, I have a question. If honor is not important, what stops warriors from becoming monsters? It was a good question. Nari thought carefully before answering. Honor is still important, she sighed, but there are different kinds of honor. Your people think honor means following rules in battle. Humans think honor means protecting innocent people, even if we have to break rules to do it. Veltar nodded slowly. So human honor is about the result, not the method? Exactly. We judge actions by whether they save lives, not by whether they look pretty. The next day brought bad news. Admiral Vexver visited with grim reports. 3 more colonies had fallen to the Vraktai. The enemy was moving faster than expected. How? Much time do we have left? Nari asked. 6 weeks, Vexver replied. Maybe less. Nari looked at her students. They had learned much, but they still thought too slowly. In real combat, hesitation meant death. We need to speed things up, she told Tyke. Time for advanced training? Pain tolerance? Tyke asked. Everything, Nari said. They need to learn that humans don't just fight differently. We survive differently too. The alarm rang at 0500 hours. Red lights flashed throughout the station. Another colony had been destroyed. Nari found Admiral Vexver in the command center. His golden eyes looked darker than usual. On the big screen, they could see the remains of Kepler-12. What used to be a beautiful farming world was now just floating debris. 30,000 Zilani lived there, Vexver said quietly. They had the best defensive fleet in that sector. The Vraktai destroyed everything in 4 hours. Nari studied the battle records. The Zilani had used standard formation tactics, perfect spacing between ships, textbook defensive patterns. The Vraktai had countered every move perfectly. They knew exactly what the Zilani would do, she said. Yes, just like they knew what the Centauri would do last week, and the week before that. Vexver turned to her. How goes the training? They're learning, but not fast enough. Nari looked at the destroyed colony on the screen. We need to try something different. She found her students in the training room. They were practicing the stealth exercises she had taught them. They were getting better, but they still moved too much like their own species. New lesson today, Nari announced. Pain. The aliens looked confused. Veltar tilted his head. Pain? We know about pain. We train to ignore it. No, Nari said. You train to avoid it? That's different. She called for Yuna Lee, the human medic who had arrived that morning. Yuna set up a medical station in the corner. Most species shut down when they're injured, she explained. Their bodies go into survival mode. They become weak and slow. She showed them medical scans of different alien species during injury. Look here. When a Xanthari is hurt, their strength drops by 60%. Kitherians disconnect from the hive mind completely. Resonari lose their ability to create sound. This is normal, Zixklik said. Injury means retreat and heal. Not for humans, Yuna continued. She showed them scans of human soldiers during combat injuries. Humans often fight harder when injured. The pain makes us angry. Anger makes us dangerous. She demonstrated with a training knife. She made a small cut on her arm. Instead of slowing down, she moved faster and hit harder in the practice fight that followed. Your body is telling you to stop, she explained while cleaning the cut. Human minds tell the body to shut up and keep fighting. The aliens were amazed. This went against everything their evolution had taught them. But there's more, Nari added. Humans don't just fight through pain. We fight through emotion. She set up a new simulation. This time, the scenario included civilians who needed protection, alien families running from danger. Defend them. She told her students that the aliens fought well, but they fought like soldiers, professional, controlled. When some of the simulated civilians were killed, the aliens felt bad but kept fighting the same way. Then Nari changed the simulation. Now the civilians looked like human families. She showed images of children, mothers, elderly people who looked scared and helpless. Wujin, she said. Show them. Wujin entered the simulation. When he saw the human-looking families in danger, something changed in him. He fought with desperate fury. He took risks he would never take for himself. He threw himself in front of enemy fire to protect people he didn't even know. This is the difference, Nari explained as the simulation ended. Humans don't fight for duty, we fight for love. Love makes us do impossible things. Over the next 2 weeks, the training became more intense. Nari brought in more human instructors, Doyan Seo, who taught urban combat, and Sora Kim, who specialized in psychological warfare. Humans use fear as a weapon, Sora explained. Not just feeling fear, but creating it in enemies. She taught them how to use shadows and sounds to make enemies nervous, how to leave false evidence of larger forces, how to make the enemy imagine threats that weren't really there. This is disturbing, Eco Prime said, its colors shifting to uncomfortable gray. War is disturbing, Sora replied. The question is, do you want to win, or do you want to feel good about losing? The breakthrough came during a complex training exercise. The alien students had to capture a position defended by Doyan and Sora. They were allowed to use any methods they wanted. Their first 3 attempts failed. They kept thinking like their own species, just with human tactics added on top. Stop. Nari called after the 3rd failure. What's the problem? They know we're coming, Veltar said, frustrated. So we cannot surprise them? Why do you need to surprise them? The question confused all of them. Zixclick spoke first. Because that's what you taught us? Wrong, I taught you that humans are unpredictable. But being unpredictable isn't about surprise, it's about adaptation. She made them sit down. Tell me about the defenses. 2 guards at the front entrance, Flexara reported. Motion sensors on the roof, automated guns covering the back door. And you tried to sneak past all of this? Yes, why? They looked at each other, confused. Because that's how you get inside? Nari laughed. You're still thinking like aliens. What if you don't want to get inside? But the objective is to capture the position, Eco Prime said. Is it? Read the mission briefing again? Veltar looked at the briefing. His eyes went wide. Capture or neutralize the defensive position. It doesn't say we have to go inside. Exactly. For their 4th attempt, they tried something completely different. Instead of attacking the building, they attacked the power station 3 blocks away. When the lights went out, the automated defenses stopped working. Then they attacked the water pipes, forcing the defenders to come outside to see what was happening. It worked perfectly. I understand now, Zixclick said excitedly. Humans don't fight the battle the enemy prepared for. They fight a different battle entirely. Now you're getting it, Nari said. But that evening brought more bad news. The Vraktai had changed their strategy. Instead of attacking military targets, they had started destroying civilian colonies with no warning. They're trying to force U.S. into a direct battle, Vexver explained. If we don't defend the colonies, millions die. If we do defend them, they can predict our movements. Nari studied the new reports. The Vraktai were adapting to human unpredictability by removing choice from the equation. How long before they reached the core worlds? She asked. 3 weeks. Maybe 4. She looked at her students. They had learned much, but could they teach others in time? Admiral, I need permission to expand the program. What do you need? 50 more human instructors? Training facilities on every major world. We need to teach the entire galaxy to fight. Like humans, that's a massive operation. It's our only chance. The Vractai are learning to counter human tactics too. But they can't counter every species thinking like humans at the same time. Vexler was quiet for a long moment. You have whatever you need. As the alien students prepared for their final test, Veltar approached Nari with a question. Commander, what if we learn to think like humans, but we lose what makes us who we are? Nari thought about this. What makes you who you are, Veltar? Honor? Courage? Loyalty to my people? And have you lost any of those things? He considered this. No, but I fight differently now. Good, you're still Zenthari. You're just a Zenthari who fights to win instead of fighting to look good. The final test would determine if they were ready to teach others. Everything they had learned would be put to the ultimate challenge, but first they needed to survive it. The transport ship dropped out of hyperspace near planet Zarian 9. Through the windows, the planet looked dead. Its once green continents were now brown and gray. The Vractai had been there for 2 months. Remember, Nari told her team, this is not a rescue mission. This is intelligence gathering. We get in, learn what we can about their adaptation methods, and get out. Her team consisted of the original alien trainees plus 3 new human operatives. Jisoo Park, a demolitions expert, Unbi-han, who specialized in electronic warfare, and Minho Kong, their communications specialist. The research facility is here, Yunbi said, pointing to a map. It's heavily defended. Standard approach would be to land nearby and assault directly. Which is why we won't do that, Veltar said. He was learning. Correct. Where would be the worst place to land? Nari asked. Jisoo studied the terrain scans. Here, the burning wastes. It's a desert with temperatures over 60 degrees Celsius. Acid storms happen twice a day. No water, no shelter, no cover. Perfect, Nari said. That's where we're going. The aliens looked at her like she was crazy. Even Wujin seemed worried. Commander, Eco Prime said, we cannot survive in that environment. Sure we can? Humans have survived in worse places. She looked at their worried faces. Trust me. They landed at the edge of the burning wastes at night. The heat hit them like a wall when they opened the ship's door. The air was dry and tasted like metal. Human survival rule number 1, Nari explained as they unloaded gear. The enemy defends where they think you'll attack. They don't defend places where they think you'll die. The first day was brutal. The alien team members struggled with the heat and the rough terrain. They had to stop every hour to rest and drink water. This is impossible, Flexara complained. We should have landed closer to the target. And walked into a trap, Minho replied. The Vractai have sensors covering every logical landing zone. But they don't waste sensors on places like this. By the second day, something interesting happened. The alien team members started to adapt. Veltar learned to use his 4 arms to create shade while he walked. Zixklik discovered that moving like an insect instead of a soldier used less energy. Ecoprime found that certain sound frequencies could help cool the air around them. You're learning, Nari told them. Humans don't just adapt tactics. We adapt our bodies to survive anywhere. On the 3rd day, they reached the high ground overlooking the research facility. Through binoculars, they could see the Vractai compound. It was built like a fortress, with walls, guard towers, and energy shields. 47 guards, Yunbi counted. Automated defense systems. Energy barriers on all approaches. Standard assault would need at least 200 soldiers, Veltar said. Good thing we're not doing a standard assault, Nari replied. They spent the entire day watching. Not attacking, not moving, just observing. The aliens found this hard to understand. Why aren't we doing anything? Zixklik asked. We are doing something, Jisoo explained. We're learning. Look at the guard patterns. They change shifts every 4 hours. But watch guard tower 3. They watched. After an hour, they saw it. The guard in Tower 3 always took a break 15 minutes into each shift. Lazy guard, Ecoprime observed. No, Nari corrected. Opportunity. They spent another day just watching. The aliens grew impatient, but the humans kept finding new details. Supply trucks came twice a day. The energy shields went down for 30 seconds when the trucks entered. The Vraktai had excellent discipline, but they followed exact patterns. Patterns are weakness, Wujin said. Even good patterns. The fourth night, they didn't attack the facility. Instead, they attacked something else entirely. The power station is here, Yumbi pointed to a small building 5 kilometers away, lightly guarded. They think it's too far away to matter. How does attacking the power station help us? Veltar asked. It doesn't, Nari admitted. That's, why we're going to do it. They hit the power station at midnight. It was easy. 2 guards, quickly disabled. Jisu planted her explosives not to destroy the station, but to make it work badly. The power would flicker on and off randomly. Now what? Fluxara asked. Now we wait for them to react. The Vraktai reacted exactly as Nari had predicted. When their power started failing, they sent repair teams. When the teams found the explosives, they increased security everywhere. Guards were moved from the research facility to protect infrastructure. They're pulling defenders away from our real target, Zixclick realized. Exactly, we made them solve the wrong problem. But they still didn't attack the facility. Instead, they hit the water treatment plant. Then the communication relay. Then a supply depot. Each attack was small and seemed random, but each one forced the Vraktai to respond. They had to spread their forces thinner and thinner. This is psychological warfare, Minho explained to the confused aliens. We're not trying to destroy anything important. We're trying to make them paranoid and confused. On the 6th night, they left false evidence that a large army was approaching from the south, radio chatter suggesting hundreds of soldiers. Fake supply caches. Vehicle tracks leading toward the facility. The Vraktai moved most of their forces to meet this imaginary threat. Finally, on the 7th night, 8 people walked up to the research facility's back door. Most of the guards were gone. The defenses were weakened. The Vraktai were looking in the wrong direction. This seems too easy, Veltar whispered. That's the point, Nari whispered back. We spent a week making it easy. Getting inside was simple. Yumbi disabled the few remaining security systems. They found the computer banks and downloaded everything they could, but what they found in the computers was terrifying. They've been studying us, Jisu said, looking at the data. Not just alien tactics, human tactics too. The files showed detailed analysis of human military history. Earth's wars, the exact training methods Nari had been using. The Vraktai were learning to think like humans. Look at this, Minho pointed to a file labeled Human Adaptation Patterns. They're developing counters to human unpredictability. How? Eco Prime asked. By becoming unpredictable themselves, Nari realized. They're copying our methods. The alarm rang. They had been discovered. Time to go, Nari said, but as they tried to leave, they found Vraktai soldiers waiting for them. The enemy had predicted their escape route. Impossible, Veltar said. We used human tactics. We were unpredictable. No, one of the Vraktai said in perfect galactic standard. You were predictable. We studied human psychology. When humans gather intelligence, they always try to escape the same way they entered. Back door to back door. The Vraktai had learned from human patterns just like they learned from alien patterns. What do we do now? Wujin asked. Nari smiled. Something they can't predict because we haven't done it before. Instead of fighting or running, she started talking. I have a question for you, she said to the Vraktai leader. Why do you want to conquer the galaxy? To survive, the Vraktai replied. Our world is dying. We need new homes. So do this. Properly, Nari said. Challenge us to formal combat. Winner takes the galaxy. The aliens on her team stared at her. She had just suggested exactly what the Vraktai would want. Interesting, the Vraktai leader said. But why would you suggest this? Because you're going to lose, Nari said confidently. While they talked, her team quietly moved into better positions. The Vraktai noticed, but they were too interested in the conversation to stop them. We have adapted to all your methods. The Vractai said, "Human tactics no longer surprise us." "You adapted to my methods," Nari agreed. "But I'm just one human. There are billions of us. Each one thinks differently." The Vractai leader paused. This seemed to worry him. "Attack," he finally ordered his soldiers, but the attack never came. Jisoo had been slowly spreading sleeping gas from her equipment. By the time the Vractai realized what was happening, they were too drowsy to fight. "Gas attacks," Veltar said as they tied up the unconscious enemies. "Very dishonorable." "Very effective," Nari corrected. They escaped through the front door while the Vractai were sleeping. Sometimes the most obvious route was the least expected. Back on the transport ship, they reviewed what they had learned. "The Vractai are adapting to human tactics," Yunbi reported. "But they're doing it by studying our history. They think human behavior follows patterns." "Does it?" Eco Prime asked. "Sometimes," Nari admitted. "But here's what they don't understand about humans. We don't just adapt our tactics, we adapt our thinking. Every human is different. Every human fights differently." She looked at her alien students. "And now you can think like humans too. The Vractai can't study patterns that don't exist." "So what's our next move?" Minho asked. "We go back to the station," Nari said. "It's time to teach the galaxy to think like humans, all of us at the same time. Will it work?" Zixclick asked. Nari smiled. "I don't know. But that's what makes a human." The main conference room at Kepler 7 station was packed. Representatives from 50 different species filled every seat. Some stood on the walls with magnetic feet. Others floated near the ceiling. The air was thick with the smell of dozens of different alien biologies. Nari stood at the front, looking at the crowd. These were military instructors from across the galaxy. Each one was an expert in their species' way of fighting. Each one thought their method was the best. "In 4 days, the Vractai will reach the core worlds," she began. "Every traditional defense has failed. Every predictable tactic has been countered. We have one chance left." Admiral Vexver stepped forward. "Commander Kim will teach you the human way of war. You will then return to your worlds and teach your armies. This is our last hope." A large, furry alien stood up. "I am General Rockmar of the Ursoid clans. We have fought for 10,000 years. What can one small human teach us?" "How to survive the next 10 days?" Nari replied simply. She activated the holographic display. It showed the recent Vractai victories. "Your 10,000 years of experience mean nothing to an enemy who has studied all of it. The Vractai know exactly how Ursoids fight. They know how everyone fights. Then how do we surprise them?" asked a snake-like Viperian commander. "We don't," Nari said. "We do something better. We become impossible to predict." She gestured to her original alien students. "These 5 have been training with me for 2 months. Veltar, show them the old way." Veltar activated a combat simulation. He fought like a traditional Zenthari warrior. Strong, brave, honorable. The simulated Vractai enemies defeated him easily. "Now show them the new way." This time, Veltar fought like a human-trained warrior. He used tricks, deception, and adaptive tactics. The same simulated enemies couldn't keep up with his constantly. Changing approach. The watching instructors muttered in their various languages. Some sounded impressed, others sounded disgusted. "This is not real combat," complained a crystalline shardite officer. "These are just training games." "You're right," Nari agreed. "Who wants to try real combat?" She brought in her expanded human team. Hana Jo, who specialized in urban warfare. Woojin Lim, an expert in demolitions. And her own brother, Tai Kim, who taught survival skills. "Pick your best instructor," Nari told the aliens. "Any species. They fight my humans using traditional tactics. Let's see what happens." The aliens chose General Rockmar. He was huge, strong, and experienced. He entered the combat simulation with confidence. Hana Jo defeated him in 3 minutes. "Impossible," Rockmar roared. "I am 3 times her size." "Size doesn't matter when you're predictable," Hana explained. "You fought exactly like every Ursoid I've ever studied. Strong charge, powerful strikes, never retreat. I just had to avoid your charge and attack your weak points. This is trickery, another alien complained. This is survival, Nari corrected. Pick another instructor, send 2 this time. They sent a Viperian and a Shardite together. Wujin. Lim beat them both by using the environment against them. He made the Viperian's poison attacks hit the Shardite. He used the Shardite's sonic abilities to confuse the Viperian. He turned us against each other. The Viperian hissed. He used your strengths as weaknesses, Taik Kim explained. Very human approach. The alien instructors were starting to pay attention. Nari could see the change in their body language. All right, she said. Time for real training. But first, you need to understand something important. I'm not here to make you human. I'm here to make you think like humans when you fight. Over the next 2 days, Nari and her team taught crash courses in human combat psychology. Lesson 1, Hannah Jo announced. Forget everything you know about honor in combat. This caused an uproar. Half the aliens started arguing at once. We don't mean become dishonorable, Wujin Lim clarified. We mean redefine honor. Human honor is about protecting people, not following rules. Lesson 2, Tai Kim continued. Pain is information, not limitation. He demonstrated by continuing to fight effectively while injured. The aliens watched in amazement as he adapted his fighting style to work around his wounds. Lesson 3. Nari said, creative problem solving under pressure? She created impossible scenarios, equipment failures during combat, being outnumbered 10-1, fighting with inferior weapons, having to protect civilians while under attack. Traditional tactics say these situations are hopeless, she explained. Human tactics say these situations require creativity. The breakthrough came when a young Aquarian instructor named Flowstream had an idea during a training exercise. The scenario was simple. Get past a heavily defended position with only basic weapons. Every traditional approach had failed. What? If we don't fight the defenders? Flowstream suggested. What if we make them leave? How? Asked General Rockmar. Humans showed us psychological warfare. What if we make them think their own base is compromised? False alarms, fake emergencies, imaginary threats from behind? It worked. The defenders abandoned their positions to deal with threats that didn't exist. I understand now, Flowstream said excitedly. Humans don't fight the battle in front of them. They create the battle they want to fight. Word spread quickly through the alien instructors. This new way of thinking was revolutionary. Instead of following genetic programming, they could choose their actions based on the situation, but on the second day, terrible news arrived. The Vraktai had struck earlier than expected. 3 core worlds were under attack. We're out of time, Admiral Dexver announced. The instructors must return to their fleets immediately. But they're not ready, Nari protested. They've only had 2 days of training. It will have to be enough. As the alien instructors prepared to leave, many approached Nari with questions. How do we know if we're thinking like humans correctly? Asked the Shardite officer. You'll... No, Nari replied. When your enemies can't predict what you'll do next, you're doing it right. What if we fail? General Rockmar asked quietly. Then you fail like humans, Tai Kim answered. Fighting until the end, protecting those who can't protect themselves. The instructors left for their home fleets. Within hours, reports started coming in from the battle zones. The first reports were not good. Several fleets tried to use human tactics but did them badly. They were still thinking like their own species, just with human techniques added on, but then something changed. A Xanthari fleet under an instructor named Colvin did something unexpected. Instead of their traditional honor charge, they pretended to retreat. When the Vraktai followed, the Xanthari led them into an asteroid field and used the rocks as weapons. Brilliant, Veltar said, watching the battle recordings. Classic human misdirection. More success reports came in. An Aquarian fleet used their natural swimming abilities to move through a gas giant's atmosphere, attacking from a direction the Vraktai thought was impossible. A Crystalline Federation fleet used sound tactics, but not their traditional war songs. Instead, they created frequencies that disrupted Vractai communications. They're not copying human tactics, EcoPrime observed. They're creating new tactics using human thinking. Exactly what we wanted, Nari said, but the celebration was short-lived. The Vractai were adapting again. After the first day of confused defeats, they started to counter the new tactics. They're learning too fast, Yumbihan reported from the communication center. They're starting to predict the human-style adaptations. Nari studied the latest battle reports. The Vractai were indeed learning. But there was something strange about their adaptation patterns. Look at this, she told her team. They're countering the tactics perfectly, but they're doing it the same way every time. What do you mean? Wujin asked. They study the new tactic, develop a counter, then apply that counter everywhere. They're still thinking systematically. So humans don't adapt systematically. We adapt chaotically. Every human solves problems differently. She realized what they needed to do. We need to get to the front lines. The instructors learned human thinking, but they still need to see human chaos in action. The GDC will never approve a civilian mission to active combat zones, Minho said. Then we don't ask permission, Nari replied. Very human approach. As alerts came in that the Vractai main fleet was approaching the capital system, Nari made a decision that would either save the galaxy or doom it. Pack light, she told her team. We're going to war. The Vractai war fleet appeared at the edge of the capital system like a dark cloud. 2,000 ships, each one built for destruction. They moved in perfect formation toward Kepler-7 station and the 3 inhabited worlds it protected. Nari stood on the command deck of the defense station watching the enemy approach. Around her, officers from dozens of species worked frantically to coordinate the defense. It wasn't going well. All fleets report ready, Admiral Exver announced. 400 ships from 12 different species. We're outnumbered 5-1, General Rockmar growled over the communication system. Numbers don't matter, Nari replied. Predictability matters. Are your fleets ready to fight like humans? As ready as we can make them in 3 days? It wasn't enough time. Nari knew it. Everyone knew it. But they were out of time. Enemy fleet will reach weapons range in 2 hours, the tactical officer reported. All ships implement scatter formation. Dexfer ordered. This was the first test of human tactics on a large scale. Instead of the traditional battle lines that most species preferred, the mixed fleets spread out in seemingly random patterns. Each ship group was small and independent. The Vractai will expect us to form defensive walls around the planets, Nari explained to the command staff. Instead, we're everywhere and nowhere. The Vractai reacted exactly as predicted. Their fleet slowed down, confused by the scattered formation. They had prepared for traditional defensive patterns. First advantage to us, Wujin observed, but it won't last long. He was right. Within an hour, the Vractai had adapted. They split their own fleet into smaller hunting groups, each one designed to chase down the scattered defenders. This was the moment of truth. Instead of coordinated battle plans, each ship group was told to fight independently. No overall strategy. No predetermined formations. Each group would do whatever they thought would work. To most military minds, this was insanity. Coordinated attacks always beat random actions. But humans had learned something different from their history of survival. When every group does something different, the enemy can't predict anyone. Nari had explained during training. The battle began in earnest. Xanthari ships pretended to retreat, then turned and attacked when the Vractai followed. Aquarian vessels hid in the gas clouds around the outer planet, striking without warning. Crystalline ships used their sound abilities not for offense, but to jam Vractai communications. Each attack was different. Each retreat followed a new pattern. Each defense used unexpected methods. For 3 hours, the strategy worked. The Vractai couldn't adapt fast enough because there was nothing consistent to adapt to, but then disaster struck. A Vractai battle group broke through the scattered defenses and headed straight for Kepler-7 station. If they destroyed the command center, the entire defense would collapse. All ships, converge on the station, Dexver ordered. No, Nari countermanded. That's what they want. They're trying to make us predictable again. But if the station falls, then we fight from somewhere else. Very human philosophy. Instead of massing the fleet to defend the station, Nari ordered something that seemed crazy. She told half the ships to attack the Vractai supply lines. In the outer system, you're abandoning the station? General Rockmar demanded. I'm making them choose, Nari replied. Destroy the station or protect their supplies? They can't do both. The Vractai chose to split their forces. Part of their fleet continued toward the station. The rest turned back to protect their supplies. Now, both sides were divided. The battle became a dozen smaller fights instead of one large one. This is madness, Admiral Lexfer said. This is human warfare, Veltar corrected him. Make the enemy fight the battle you want, not the battle they prepared for. But the station was still in danger. The Vractai attack group was only minutes away from weapons range. Activate the final protocol, Nari ordered. What final protocol? Lexfer asked. The one I didn't tell you about, Nari admitted. She had secretly positioned human volunteers throughout the defense fleet, not as commanders but as individual advisors. When the crisis came, each one would do what humans do best: improvise. Minho Kong was with the crystalline fleet. Instead of using sound weapons, he convinced them to use sound to create false sensor readings. The Vractai suddenly thought they were being attacked from 12 different directions. Hen was aboard a Xanthari cruiser. She suggested using their honor code against them. The Xanthari challenged individual Vractai ships to single combat, forcing the enemy fleet to break formation. Hannah Jo advised the Aquarian vessels to use their liquid adaptation abilities in a new way. They turned their ships into temporary liquid, flowing around Vractai attacks and reforming in new positions. Each human advisor suggested something different. Each idea was adapted to the species they were working with. The Vractai faced not one human strategy, but dozens of human-alien hybrid strategies. The attack on the station was stopped not by superior firepower, but by pure confusion. The Vractai couldn't coordinate their assault when every defending ship did something unexpected. How are they doing this? Intercepted Vractai communications demanded. Every ship fights differently. That's the point, Nari said, even though they couldn't hear her, but the battle wasn't won yet. The Vractai regrouped and tried a new approach. Instead of trying to predict individual tactics, they focused on the overall goal: destroy the inhabited planets. A massive Vractai strike force broke away from the main battle and headed directly for the nearest world. They ignored all the defending ships, accepting heavy losses in exchange for a clear shot at civilian targets. They're trying to force us into a direct confrontation, Dexfer realized. And we're going to give them one, Nari said, but not the one they expect. She ordered every available ship to pursue the strike force. But instead of trying to stop them, she told the fleet to get ahead of them. What are you doing? General Rockmar demanded. Something they can't predict because it's never been done before. The human-trained fleet reached the planet first. But instead of forming a defensive line, they spread out across the planet's surface. Ships landed in cities, forests, oceans, and deserts. When the Vractai arrived, they found no fleet to fight. They found individual ships scattered across an entire world, each one fighting from a different environment. Some ships fought from inside city buildings, using urban terrain as cover. Others operated from underwater, attacking from below. Mountain-based ships used elevation advantages. Desert ships used sandstorms as camouflage. They turned the entire planet into a battlefield, the Vractai commander said in intercepted communications. How do we attack a whole world? You don't? Nari replied to herself. That's the point. The Vractai found themselves fighting not one battle, but thousands of tiny battles across hundreds of different terrains. Every ship they attacked was supported by the environment itself. And then the final surprise came. The civilian population of the planet joined the fight. This is not acceptable, the Vractai transmitted. Civilians do not participate in warfare. Human civilians do, Nari responded on an open channel. When someone threatens our homes, everyone fights. Factory workers turned their equipment into weapons. Farmers used their knowledge of the land to set traps. Children as young as 10 helped by spotting enemy movements and passing information. The Vractai had prepared to fight armies. They had not prepared to fight an entire civilization. Impossible, their final transmission said. We cannot predict an entire population. The Vractai fleet began to retreat. They had lost nearly half their ships, and the defenders were still fighting with undiminished fury. But as they pulled back, their commander sent one last message. We understand now. You do not fight to win glory. You do not fight to prove strength. You fight to survive. We cannot counter survival instinct. This war is not over, he continued. But we cannot defeat an enemy that fights with the desperation of the dying while they are still alive. The Vractai fleet jumped to hyperspace and disappeared. In the command center of Kepler 7 station, exhausted officers from dozens of species looked at each other in amazement. Did we win? Someone asked. We survived, Nari corrected. And sometimes, that's the same thing. 6 months later, Nari stood in the new Galactic Defense Academy. The building was filled with students from every species in the galaxy. They were all learning the same curriculum, human tactical adaptation, but it wasn't just about warfare anymore. The alien species were applying human-style creative thinking to everything. Engineering problems, diplomatic conflicts, resource management. Think they'll remember the lessons when the next crisis comes? Woojin Park asked. He was now a full instructor at the academy. Nari watched a group of mixed-species students working together on a complex problem. Azanthori was suggesting using deception in negotiations. A crystalline being was proposing multiple backup plans. An Aquarian was thinking about emotional considerations. They're not just learning human tactics, she realized. They're becoming more human themselves. Is that good or bad? Nari smiled. Ask me in 100 years. But I think the galaxy just became a lot more interesting place to live. Outside the academy, ships from dozens of worlds came and went. Each one carried officers, trained in the human way of war. Not to conquer, but to survive. Not to follow rules, but to